Chapter 34:26. A powerful divine sense was injected into the sky. Almost at that moment, the hearts of the four guardians of the celestial corners suddenly shook. They opened their sharp eyes in the palaces in the four corners and looked towards the path of immortality. In the next moment, four rays of light streaked across the sky like shooting stars and headed towards the same place. The people in the lower realm didn't react at all. Because of this, the people in the lower realm didn't know that the master of this world had changed overnight. In front of a cave residence in the sect, Mo Chun, dressed in white, stood with his hands behind his back. He raised his head and looked at the sky. His calm eyes were like the mysterious sea, deep and bottomless. No one knew what he was thinking. They only knew that he stood there quietly for the entire night and only returned to his cave residence to rest when the sun was about to rise. Jun Jueshang, who was also in the sect, also knew that Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu had opened the path of immortality. That night, even though he did not walk out of the courtyard, he knew that not only had the heavens and earth in the lower world changed owners, but even the upper world had been enveloped by a new divine sense. It covered every corner and quietly changed owners. Ordinary immortal cultivators did not notice it. However, Sovereign Tontian and the others, who were also divine kings, knew it immediately. The others were different. After all, they knew that Xianyuan Mose and Fengjiu were both divine kings. However, they did not designate their territories as sovereigns. Now that they had taken over the upper world, it was within their expectations. However, when Sovereign Tontian heard the news, he was so angry that he smashed things in his palace. It was fine if it was the lower world, but he had already intended to take over the upper world. However, Xianyuan Mose had beaten him to it. Moreover, he was the sovereign of the upper world. It seemed that all the major sects and forces had tacitly agreed to it. No one stood out to stop him. This made him very angry. In particular, an expert who had just entered the Divine King realm actually had the ability to change the heavens and earth in one night. Such means and boldness shocked him. The next morning, when the first rays of the morning sun shone on the earth, the chill in the air was dispelled. Before the people in the sect woke up, a white figure walked up the mountain path. Bai Qingcheng, who had not shown her face for a long time, rushed over from the sect when she received the news from her master. Since her master was going back to get married, she naturally had to follow. Moreover, she had not seen her master and the rest for a long time, and she missed them dearly. He knocked on the door of the sect and explained his intentions. Then, someone from the sect led him to the cave residence. Because she came early, when she arrived at Master's Immortal's cave, Master was still not awake. Instead, she bumped into Lung Hua and the others. Qingsheng, when did you arrive? Lung Hua looked at her, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, and revealed a gentle smile. I just arrived, Bai Qingsheng said. She looked at him and asked, Are you all okay? We're all good. Lung Hua nodded and said, I'm about to go to the kitchen. Come with me. Therefore, Bai Qingsheng responded and followed him to the kitchen. Along the way, the two of them chatted about what had happened in the past few years. Chapter 34:27. Master. When Bai Qingsheng saw Fengjiu, she immediately stood up and bowed respectfully. You're here? Have a seat. Fengjiu smiled and gestured for her to sit down. He also sat down on the cloth spread out on the grass. He picked up a piece of cake and ate it while patting Hao Er's head. Mother, when are we going home? Hao Er looked up and asked. We'll go back in a while. Fengjiu smiled and looked at Bai Qingsheng. He glanced at her and smiled. It seems that you've improved very quickly these few years. Bai Qingsheng smiled. It's all thanks to Master's pills. Otherwise, Qingsheng wouldn't have improved so quickly. Speaking of which, you haven't seen your brother for many years since you came here with me. We can have a good reunion when we go back. Fengjiu said. A gentle smile appeared on Bai Qingsheng's face at the mention of her younger brother. A few years had passed, and her brother should have grown up a lot. He should be able to take charge of things on his own now. Mose doesn't plan to go back. Mo Chan glanced at them, and his gaze fell on Xianyuan Mose, who was standing at the side with his hands behind his back. Xianyuan Mose looked at him. I have some matters to attend to. I'll go back later. It wasn't easy for him to get married. He wanted to give his beloved woman the best of everything. Therefore, he was going to prepare the betrothal gifts himself. We'll go back with Master after a while, but it shouldn't be too long. Huilang grinned and ate a piece of cake. Fengjiu looked at Mo-chun and smiled helplessly. He wants to prepare the betrothal gifts himself. I told him not to go through so much trouble, but he didn't listen. Guan Shilin laughed. Xiao Jiu, you don't have to worry. With his current strength, who can hurt him easily? Getting married is a big thing. Let him prepare. We'll go back first to arrange things. There are many things to do before the wedding. We'll be busy when we go back. Don't worry, Master. We will be responsible for the preparations. Du Fan said with a smile, waving the fan in his hand. There are so many of us. Do you think we won't be able to handle the wedding? Besides, there are quite a lot of people back there. Speaking of which, we haven't seen them for a long time. Hearing Du Fan mention them, the others smiled. They knew that he was talking about the Feng Wei and the others over there. After leaving for so many years, they were finally going back. No matter who it was, they were all happy and looking forward to it. The group of people chatted and laughed for a while. After eating some food, they packed up and prepared. After bidding farewell to the sect leader and the others, they flew into the sky on their swords and arrived at the path of immortality. Xinyuan Mose, Huilang, and Ing Yi saw them off. The group of people followed Xinyuan Mose and Fengjiu into the path of immortality. As soon as they entered the path of immortality, it was as if they were stepping on flat ground. They couldn't help but look down. CK and Mu Xin also came out to see them off. They sent them to the path of immortality in the mortal world. Fengjiu released the flying ship and let them board it first. Then, he looked back at Xinyuan Mose. He walked forward and hugged him. I'll wait for you at home. Don't make me wait too long. Chapter 34:28. Hearing this, Xinyuan Mose's lips curled up slightly. His deep black eyes were filled with gentleness. He held her waist with both hands and lowered his head to plant a kiss on her forehead. And it won't be long. His big hand stroked her black hair. His deep voice was magnetic as he said, "Go." Fengjiu stepped back and looked at him deeply. Then, she turned around and walked forward. She took a deep breath and jumped onto the spaceship. She stood at the bow of the spaceship and looked at him, until the spaceship slowly flew away and gradually disappeared from her sight. His figure was also covered by the white clouds. Only then did she retract her gaze and sat down among the crowd. "Mother, do you miss Father? When will Father come back?" Hao came to her side. His pair of small hands hugged one of her arms as he looked up and asked, "When he's done with his business, he naturally won't come back. It won't be long," Fengjiu said with a smile. She reached out and rubbed his head. Mo-chun glanced at her. His gentle and calm eyes had a trace of undetectable gentleness. Just as he was about to look away, his eyes flashed slightly. He looked behind the spaceship and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Someone's coming from behind. Hearing this, everyone turned around to look. They saw a white figure on a flying sword coming towards them. That elegant white robe fluttered in the wind. The elegant demeanor of an immortal was very pleasing to the eye. It's Junju Shang? Guan Shilin looked at the gradually approaching figure in surprise. Then he smiled at Fengjiu and said, "It seems that he's coming for Qianhua." Fengjiu's gaze also fell on Junju Shang. Seeing that he had actually followed them, he couldn't help but feel moved. Could it be that he had guessed it? That's why he followed them? It seems that our journey will be quite lively. Fengjiu chuckled. Seeing that he was outside the spaceship, he waved his sleeves and opened the barrier around the spaceship to let him in. Junju Shang strode in and put away his flying sword into his sleeve. He looked at the people on the spaceship who were looking at him with interest. He calmly glanced at them, and his gaze landed on Fengjiu, who was dressed in red. He walked towards her. "Why did you follow me? Aren't you going to look for my sister?" "My sister isn't on this ship." Fengjiu chuckled and gestured to Leng Hua. Leng Hua stood up and stepped back to make room for him. At the same time, he took a wine glass and placed it on the table. Then, he retreated to sit behind Fengjiu. Junju Eshang walked forward and lifted his robe. He sat down beside Fengjiu and said, "If I follow you, she will appear. He had just heard the news that they were going back to get married. Since they were going to get married, Wang Yin Xianhua and her were sworn sisters. It was impossible for her not to appear. Therefore, after knowing that they had left, he immediately rushed over. He knew that he didn't need to look for her. As long as he followed her, she would appear when the time was right. Hearing his words, Feng Jiu smiled playfully. He took a sip of wine and asked, "Aren't you not interested in her? Why are you looking for her like this? When you really find her, how are you going to deal with your relationship with her?" Chapter 34:29. For a moment, he was at a loss. Even now, he still couldn't understand his own heart, let alone his feelings for her. Seeing him sitting there in a daze, as if he was lost in thought, Feng Jiu's smile deepened. In love, many people are blinded by the situation. Even Jun Jushang was the same. However, since this matter was related to her sister's happiness, she would naturally give them some pointers. At least, she could save them a lot of detours. The spaceship flew in the sky. Some of the people who had nothing to do were sitting cross-legged to cultivate. Some were resting with their eyes closed, some were drinking wine, and some were chatting. In the evening, when the sky was about to turn dark, the spaceship suddenly made a loud bang. The entire spaceship shook violently, causing everyone in the spaceship to immediately stand up and look around. Bang! Another heavy blow hit the spaceship. The spaceship shook, and the people standing in the spaceship also shook. Feng Jiu frowned slightly. She looked at the huge ship that had come behind their spaceship at some point in time and was ramming into their spaceship. "Master, let's go out and take a look," Du Fan and the others said as they flew out. Seeing this, Guan Shilin snorted loudly. "Who dares to hit us with a ship? They're really bold." He was sleeping when he was suddenly woken up by someone. At this moment, he was in a bad mood. He immediately went out and was ready to teach those people a lesson. As they left the spaceship's boundary, Feng Jiu's mind moved. The spaceship slowly descended and stopped in the forest below. Almost at the moment when their spaceship stopped, the surrounding cultivators on their swords surrounded them. Each of them stared at the magnificent spaceship with greed in their eyes. "Looks like this is a fat sheep. Such a magnificent spaceship. It's better than the ones we've seen before," a man said as he stared at the magnificent spaceship that stopped on the ground. "TSK, TSK. The women on the spaceship are also very beautiful," another man said as he stared at the women on the spaceship with lustful eyes. Because they were so focused on profit, they carelessly ignored the handsome men and beautiful women on the boat. Moreover, each of them had an extraordinary bearing. At this moment, they only thought that their luck today was really extraordinarily good. Just by looking at them, they knew that they would make a lot of money today. They went forward to grab the people on the spaceship, but found that they couldn't enter the boundary. They tried to cut it with their swords, but they were also bounced away. Just as they were feeling depressed, they suddenly felt something dripping on their faces. They thought it was rain, but when the smell of blood entered their noses, they couldn't help but be shocked. "Blood! It's blood!" They looked up abruptly and saw broken limbs falling from above. Some fell on their bodies, while others fell around them. It was a shocking sight. The 20 or so cultivators below cried out in alarm and retreated a few steps. They looked up warily. Not long after, they saw a few figures coming over on a light breeze. The murderous aura that emerged from their bodies made them break out in cold sweat. It was only at this moment that they realized that these people were not ordinary people. Chapter 34:30. "Ooh, who are you people?" one of them asked in a trembling voice as he retreated, looking for an opportunity to escape. They had done so many things, but they had never encountered such terrifying prey. No, they must be blind to think that they were prey. These people were clearly malefactors. Guan Shilin's fierce gaze swept over them, then said to Du Fan, "Take care of them. It's getting late, so let's rest here tonight." "Okay," Du Fan responded, opening the folding fan in his hand with a whoosh. In the next moment, the fan in his hand flew out, followed by his figure. His extremely fast movement technique was accompanied by a flash of cold light. Only screams could be heard, and the thick smell of blood filled the air. Not long after, the 20 or so rogue cultivators all fell to the ground dead. Fengjiu glanced outside and said, "Let's go somewhere else. We shouldn't be far from the town. Let's go to the city to rest." Hearing his words, everyone nodded. After Du Fan and the others boarded the flying ship, it flew forward again, finally arriving outside a city gate before the sky turned dark. After alighting from the flying ship, the group of people went into the city. Returning to this place after so many years, it had to be said that everything here was unfamiliar. However, they also had the power of the Phoenix Guards here. The group of people walked around the city, and after seeing the inn under their control, they went in. "Mother, can we go to the night market in the city after dinner?" "How?" Blinked his clear eyes and looked at her, his delicate little face filled with hope. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled slightly. "Sure, after dinner, we'll go to the night market." "That's great. Thank you, Mother." The little guy jumped up and down excitedly with a smile, but he felt that this was not good, so he quickly stood properly, because there were many of them. After checking into the inn, Lung Hua went to the shopkeeper and found out that the inn only had a few rooms and a few guests. Therefore, he told the shopkeeper not to accept any more guests. The group of people ate on the first floor of the inn, while Lung Hua, Du Fan, and the others stayed behind to deal with some matters. After all, there were many things to do to contact the Phoenix Guards. As for Guan Shilin and the others, seeing that Fengjiu and the other women went to the night market, they did not follow them, but went back to their rooms to rest first. When the sky darkened, Fengjiu and the others entered the city and attracted the attention of all parties in the city. However, they had been away for many years, and in such a city, not everyone could recognize Fengjiu and the others. Therefore, although some people were curious, they did not know their identities. Until nighttime, when Fengjiu brought Lung Hua by Qin Sheng, Qin Exine, and Hao out to the night market, the four beautiful women walking together could almost cause a huge commotion. Moreover, no matter whether it was appearance or bearing, the four of them were incomparable to ordinary people. Even the daughters of the aristocratic families in the city became inconspicuous in front of them. Especially among the four of them, Fengjiu, who was dressed in an extremely dazzling red robe, was even more outstanding when compared to the other three. Even if their appearances were superb, at a glance, the most outstanding and the most eye-catching one was Fengjiu, who had a lazy smile on his face. Chapter 34-31. The man in luxurious clothes revealed a smile that he thought was handsome and unrestrained. He looked expectantly at the beautiful women in front of him. His gaze swept across the four of them before finally landing on Fengjiu, who was dressed in red with a languid and wanton air. Compared to the other three, the woman in red had a wanton air about her. Her languid and casual movements inexplicably tugged at his heartstrings, causing him to be unable to tear his eyes away from her. Lung Shuang and the other two who were following behind Fengjiu saw the man staring straight at their master. A frosty expression appeared on their faces, but since their master did not speak and the other party did not make any other moves, it was not appropriate for them to make a move. Fengjiu looked at the man in luxurious clothes in front of her, and a smile appeared on her beautiful face. Her indifferent voice carried a hint of laziness as she said, "No need, please make way." The world loved beauty, so the man's actions were normal. After all, she knew that they would not be calm once they came out. As long as the man's actions did not go overboard, she would not casually make a move. Hearing the woman's indifferent voice, the man's heart skipped a beat, and he could not help but take a step forward. However, the moment he took a step forward, Lung Shuang, who was standing on Fengjiu's left, swept a cold glance and sent the man flying several meters away with a palm strike. She could tolerate the man staring at their master, but she could not allow him to take half a step closer to their master. Bang! Puffed! Young master! In an instant, the scene became chaotic. The man fell heavily to the ground. Due to the surge of his blood, a mouthful of blood surged from his chest and spat out from his mouth. The guards were so shocked that they rushed forward to check on him. Two of them even glared angrily and drew their swords from their waist to step forward. Stop! The man in luxurious clothes hurriedly shouted. He did not bother to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth and glared angrily at the two guards. What are you doing? If you disturb the beauties, I will hold you responsible. When Fengjiu heard this, the corner of her mouth twitched. She was speechless. Even Lung Shuang and the other two glanced at the man strangely after hearing his words. Hao who was holding Fengjiu's hand, quietly looked at the man and then at his mother. He couldn't help but think that his mother was so beautiful and his father wasn't by her side. It seemed that he had to protect his mother on behalf of his father and not let other men get close to her. Let's go. Fengjiu held Hao Er's hand and walked forward, passing by the man in luxurious clothes. Lung Shuang and the other two followed. However, they saw that the man was not afraid of death and went forward again. He jogged to 3 steps in front of their master and bowed in a strange manner. It's all my fault for being rude just now. Please don't take it to heart. Actually, I don't have any ill intentions. The man hurriedly said. Hearing this, Fengjiu stopped walking. She glared at him and said, If that's the case, then stop bothering us. Seeing this, the man hurriedly said, But miss, do you really not need someone to lead the way for you? I'm familiar with this city. I know where the night view is the best, and where you can find the most popular rouge and face powder. We don't need it. Fengjiu glanced at him indifferently. There was already some impatience in her eyes. Goo. The man was about to say something when he saw a cold and delicate child suddenly walk in front of him. He couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Chapter 34-32. Hearing these soft and cold words, the man in luxurious clothes was startled and didn't react in time. Mother. Hao Er's little face darkened. Are you stupid? This is my mother. Why are you calling her mother? When Fengjiu heard this, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Her smile was as if spring had returned and all living things had come back to life. It was so beautiful that it was indescribable, causing the surrounding people to be stunned. When the surrounding gazes fell on her, Fengjiu frowned imperceptibly. She didn't say anything and just kept her smile. She held Hao Er's hand and walked forward. The 3 people behind her followed quietly. It was unknown if he was still in a daze, but the man in luxurious clothes stared blankly as Fengjiu and the others walked away. It wasn't until they were out of his sight that he muttered, Her child is already so big. I really don't know what kind of man is worthy of such a peerless beauty. When the guard behind him heard his young master muttering, he couldn't help but shake his head secretly. That woman wasn't simple. No matter what kind of man he was, he couldn't be their young master. Fengjiu brought Hao Er and Lung Shuang to the night market. They didn't stay out for too long. After all, they still had to continue on the road tomorrow and had to go back to rest. What made her a little unhappy was that there were many people staring at them, both in the open and in the dark. Being stared at and sized up by so many pairs of eyes while shopping was really not a pleasant thing. Therefore, after returning to the inn, she also gave instructions that after waking up tomorrow, they would leave this place and first go to 100 River City's Heavenly Pill House to take a look. The next morning, Fengjiu ate breakfast downstairs. Lung Shuang brought Qin Xian to the market to buy some food to eat on the road. The others also woke up one after another. A few guests in the inn looked at the group of people eating breakfast downstairs with some surprise. No other guests had come in since yesterday. Obviously, this inn had been booked by them. This inn was considered one of the best in the city, and the price was also expensive. Those who could stay here were not ordinary people. Now that they looked at the group of people downstairs, they were even more curious. Who were these people? Mo Chun, who was dressed in white, walked out of the room. She glanced at the people who were looking down from upstairs, and then went downstairs. Not long after, Guan Shilin from another room also walked out. He yawned and stretched. Brother, are you all out to play with your family? A middle-aged man smiled and cupped his hands at Guan Shilin as he asked. Guan Shilin looked at him and said, Yes, I guess so. Haha, I see that you all have an extraordinary bearing. I think you must be from a big family. My surname is Yang. How should I address you? The middle-aged man asked with a smile. He was curious about this group of people. After all, this group of people, regardless of whether they were men or women, were extremely outstanding. Moreover, it was obvious that the woman in red was the backbone of this group. Even so, the man in front of him, as well as the other two men in loose white robes who looked like immortals, had extremely extraordinary bearings. He couldn't help but be curious. Who exactly were these people? Why were they all so outstanding? Guan Shilin smiled and said loudly, "Me? My surname is Guan." With that, he walked downstairs. Chapter 34-33. Jun Jushang also walked out of the room at this time. He looked like an immortal who didn't eat the food of mortals. His indifferent and distant attitude made the people standing on the second floor want to go forward. However, they hesitated and didn't dare to disturb him. He walked past those people and went downstairs. He sat down at the table where Feng Jiao, Imo Chun, and Guan Shilin were sitting. He casually and naturally picked up the porridge on the table and ate some snacks. After he finished eating, he wiped the corner of his mouth and looked at Feng Jiao. "I remember that she seems to be from here." Hearing this, Feng Jiao knew what he meant. She smiled and said, "Yes, but I've never been to my sister's family." Jun Jueshang looked at her and remained silent. He did not speak again. Imo Chun looked at Jun Jueshang and saw that his face no longer had the hesitation and confusion when he talked about Wanyan Xinhua. He knew that he had made up his mind and thought about his feelings clearly. Thus, a gentle smile appeared on his lips. It seems that after drinking Gio and Mo Zay's wedding wine, we will be able to drink your wedding wine soon. Jun Jueshang, who had just picked up his teacup and was about to take a sip, heard this. His hand froze for a moment. However, he thought of something and his expression slowly returned to normal. He did not speak too bluntly and only said, "There will be a chance." Hearing this, Feng Jiao raised her eyebrows and a smile appeared on her face. She held her chin with one hand and a teasing smile appeared in her eyes. "It's just that it will be a little difficult to get my sister to nod her head." Moreover, Jun Jushang couldn't help but ask, "Besides what?" Jun Jushang asked when he saw that she had stopped talking halfway and the smile on her face was somewhat baffling. "Haha, I can't say it, I can't say it." Feng Jiao shook her head calmly. She thought to herself, "If I say it, will there be a good show to watch?" She was now thinking, when Jun Jueshang saw her sister with a big belly, would he look like he had seen a ghost? Just thinking about that scene made her want to laugh. On the other side, Lung Shuang and Qin Xian were shopping outside. In addition to some dry food, pastries, and meat, they also bought some local fruits and some snacks. "Is there anything else you want to buy?" Lung Shuang looked at Qin Xian and asked. Qin shook her head. "We bought almost all the food we need. We've also bought some snacks for the little master. There's nothing else we need to buy. And then let's go back. Master and the others have to wait." Lung Shuang said. Just as they were about to walk back, they saw the pedestrians covering their noses and avoiding them, looking at the street behind them with disdain. Seeing this, the two of them stopped and looked back. They saw a group of 50 to 60 people, old and young, with tattered clothes and disheveled hair, being herded into the city. Those people's hands and feet were chained with black iron, and they staggered as they walked. Their bodies were covered with whip scars, and every one of them seemed to be severely dehydrated. Their lips were cracked, and blood seeped out. "What are you looking at? What's so good about a group of slaves? Get out of the way." The surrounding guards held whips in their hands and shouted at the onlookers. The whips in their hands fell to the ground, making a paw sound. Chapter 34-34. Phew! Seeing the whip, Qin Xian couldn't bear it. She moved her fingers, and a breath hit the man's hand holding the whip. The man cried out in pain, and the whip in his hand fell to the ground. "Who dares to attack me?" The guard cursed angrily. He looked at his red wrist and glanced around. Qin Xian looked away and explained to Lung Shuang next to her in a low voice, "It's just a 7 or 8-year-old child. I couldn't bear to hurt him." She was worried that Lung Shuang would blame her for causing trouble. After all, they came out with their master and couldn't cause unnecessary trouble here. "You didn't hit him too hard." As Lung Shuang spoke, she glanced at the guard who was scolding him. Just as she was about to retract her gaze, she suddenly trembled. She looked at the tall figure in astonishment, which was rare for her. Hearing her words, Qin Xin was relieved. However, she felt that something was wrong with her, so she asked, "What's wrong?" Following her line of sight, a tall man stepped forward to help the child up from the ground. At this moment, the guard had already picked up the whip on the ground and lashed out at the man and the child with the anger from before. Qin Xin was about to make a move. After all, with Lung Shuang's words just now, she was not so worried. However, she never expected that before she could make a move, Lung Shuang, who was next to her, had already shot out like a gust of wind and kicked the guard who was holding the whip out of the way. She was slightly stunned and a little surprised. Was it someone she knew? She immediately followed him. Who is it? When the surrounding guards saw the cold and elegant woman in tight black clothes kick their brother away, they immediately surrounded her and questioned her. Lung Shuang didn't look at the dozens of guards. He just stared at the tall man seriously. After seeing his surprised eyes, he asked, "Gu Xiangyi?" The tall man, Gu Xiangyi, quietly looked at the cold woman in tight black in front of him. There was surprise, astonishment, and surprise in his eyes. He opened his mouth but couldn't say anything. He just nodded. He recognized her. She was Lung Shuang, Feng Jiu's confidant. If she was here, Feng Jiu must be here too. Since they parted that year, he didn't expect that they would meet again in such a situation. It made him sigh and sigh with emotion. At this time, he felt more relieved. He had been worried all the way. Finally, at this moment, he saw a familiar person and felt relieved. If it was someone else, he wouldn't feel at ease. However, Feng Jiu was someone he knew. Their journey of suffering was finally coming to an end. At this moment, he was incomparably glad that he was able to meet Lung Shuang here, and that she had also recognized him. Lung Shuang looked at him and frowned, asking, "Can't you speak?" After seeing him nod his head again, he coldly glanced at the guard around him and ordered, "Unlock their locks." "Bitch, how dare you block our way? Brothers, let's go. Catch her." The leader of the guards immediately shouted and motioned for the others to rush forward. Lung Shuang didn't make a move because Qin Xin came to her side with a zither in her arms. She plucked the strings and the sound of the zither came out. It turned into streams of air and sent the guards who rushed forward flying, but didn't hurt the innocent people around them. Chapter 34-35. "It's Qin Xion's zither," said Lung Hua as he walked out of the inn and looked outside. Feng Jiu stood up and said to Mo Chun and Zheng Jishang, "You guys stay here and drink some tea. I'll go take a look." As he spoke, he had already walked out. Lung Hua and Du Fan followed him, while Guan Shilin stayed behind to accompany Mo Chun and Zheng Jishang. Actually, even if something happened here, they didn't have to worry. No one in the upper realm dared to provoke her, let alone in the lower realm. Come, let's drink." Guan Shilin called out to the two of them and continued the previous topic, while Bai Qing Chang sat with Hao on the side, waiting for them to return. On the other side, the guards were beaten to the ground one by one in a sorry state. Some of them couldn't take it and spat out blood, while others took advantage of the chaos and quickly blended into the crowd to escape. At this moment, the surrounding people were all staring at the beautiful woman holding the zither in her arms, dumbfounded. She had only lightly plucked the strings of the zither, but she had actually made the dozens of guards fall to the ground and spit out blood one by one. At this moment, the only thing that appeared in the minds of the people was, you really can't judge a book by its cover. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, who would believe that such a delicate woman could be so destructive? Do you know her? Qin Xin looked at Lung Hua with a gentle smile on her lips. Yes. Lung Hua responded. Qin Xin walked forward and walked among the guards. She took a bunch of keys from the waist of the leader and handed it to Lung Hua. Lung Hua took it and handed the keys to Gu Xiangyi. "My master is right in front. I'll take you to see her." Hearing this, Gu Xiangyi used the keys to undo the chains on her hands and feet, then helped her father to undo the chains on his hands and feet. She then handed them to the people behind her and let them undo the black iron chains. It didn't take long for them to break free from the shackles. They supported each other as they walked towards Lung Shuang and Qin Xin. However, right at this moment, a stern shout that contained a powerful pressure resounded. At the same time, a wave of killing intent swept towards the members of the Gu clan. Want to leave? Leave your lives behind. The voice shouted, and the wind from a palm also attacked the people of the Gu family. It was as if they didn't care about human lives and wanted to take their lives with a wave of the hand. At this time, not only were the people of the Gu family unable to speak, but even their spiritual auras had disappeared without a trace. They were like ordinary people and couldn't avoid this fatal blow at all. Seeing this scene, Lung Hua, who was dressed in black, flew out. When her black figure swept out, she moved her hands and a strong pressure surged out. As she struck out with her hands, the strong airflow that contained a strong pressure knocked back the opponent's airflow. The two airflows collided, causing the middle-aged man to spit out a mouthful of blood. His body flew straight out and hit the wall of the city gate. Bang! Kacha! His body slammed into the wall and then fell to the ground. Immediately after, the sound of the wall cracking could be heard. In the next moment, a loud rumble could be heard. After the wall cracked open, it suddenly rolled down and smashed toward the middle-aged man who had fallen to the ground. Chapter 34-36. Looking at this scene, the guard who ran to report was also dumbfounded as he stood there in a daze. The two middle-aged men and an old man who came from behind also saw this situation, and their complexions became dignified. Their gazes swept across the crowd and landed on the cold and elegant woman in tight clothes. Judging from her attire, she should be a guard or something like that. However, her aura was so powerful that even they couldn't help but feel apprehensive when they saw her. This is the report from the servant. He is one of the people who came in with the woman in red. One of the middle-aged men whispered to the two people, looking down at Lung Shuang with a dignified expression. The three people descended from the sky and landed at the collapsed city gate. One of them waved his hand and motioned for over 100 guards to move the stone away to see if the person could be saved. One of the middle-aged men in luxurious clothes looked at Lung Shuang and asked in a deep voice, "Who are you, Your Excellency? Why are you making such a big fuss in the city?" For them, Lung Shuang had always been a man of few words and only said 3 simple words, looking at the Gu family. Seeing this, the middle-aged man also looked at those people, frowned, and said in a deep voice, "These are a group of people who were escorted from other places to become slaves. Just for these people, you seriously injured my city guards, injured my subordinates, and destroyed my city gate?" Lung Shuang looked at the middle-aged man and listened to him, then said coldly, "These people, any one of them is more honorable than you. If you dare to touch them, only death awaits you." At this moment, her killing intent was released. It was bone-chilling and frightening. Hearing this, Qin Xin was slightly surprised and couldn't help but look at the man named Gu Xiangyi. The other party was dirty and messy, so she couldn't see his original appearance. However, it seemed that not only did they know Lung Shuang, but more importantly, they knew their master. "Little girl, you sure talk big." As a city lord, being shouted at by a little girl in such a manner, the middle-aged man only felt embarrassed, and a murderous aura emanated from his body. With a raise of his hand, hundreds of guards quickly surrounded Lung Shuang and the others. Their long swords glinted with a cold light as they pointed at them. Once their master gave the order, they would kill them. At this moment, other than Gu Xiangyi and his father, the other members of the Gu family were confused. They didn't know the woman in black, so naturally, they didn't know who she was. Why did she recognize their young master and was willing to save them? When the Gu family saw the people unsheathing their swords and pointing at them with killing intent, they couldn't help but protect the women, children, and the elderly in the middle. However, at this moment of mutual hostility, when the surrounding people involuntarily retreated and swallowed their saliva as they watched this scene in horror, they heard a light voice that carried a bit of carelessness and laziness. "Since when can my little girl be scolded so casually?" Fengjiu, dressed in red, leisurely walked over, followed by Lung Hua, Du Fan, and the others. Chapter 34-37. However, at this moment, no one associated the woman in red with the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. After all, they knew that Fengjiu had disappeared for several years. Some said that Fengjiu had hidden herself from the world, while others said that Fengjiu had gone to the upper realm. Some even said that Fengjiu was dead. There were many different opinions, but no one knew which one was true. However, everyone knew that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu had disappeared from all parts of the mainland. Naturally, no one would think that the person in front of them was her. Moreover, they had never seen Fengjiu before. Master, Lung Shuang and Qin Xian saw her and went forward to greet her. Qin Xian then retreated behind her, while Lung Shuang said to Fengjiu, "It's Gu Xiangyi." Fengjiu was a little surprised to hear this name. His gaze swept past the people in front of him with filthy hair and dirty faces. Finally, his gaze fell on the tall figure. Gu Xiangyi. She looked at him in surprise, then glanced at the old and young people. She frowned and asked, "I haven't seen you for a few years. How did you end up in such a sorry state?" Gu Xiangyi cupped her hands and bowed to her. She smiled helplessly, but did not speak. At this moment, Lung Shuang said, "Master, they can't speak. Are these your clansmen?" Fengjiu looked at the 50 to 60 people and saw that even some children were covered in whip scars. His gaze immediately turned cold. Gu Xiangyi nodded. Seeing this, Fengjiu said, "Go to the inn in front and rest for a while. Take your clansmen with you." As Fengjiu spoke, he turned and walked back. He did not look at the middle-aged man, the old man, or the 100 or so guards behind him. He only turned to look at Du Fan, "You, Wei Feng, and the others stay here and deal with this." "Yes, master," Du Fan and the others replied. Gu Xiangyi gestured to her clansmen to follow her. Seeing a little girl fall to the ground, Lung Hua walked forward and picked her up, not caring that she had dirted his robes. The little girl saw that she had dirted Gu Xiangyi's moon-colored robe and couldn't help but shrink back in fear. She didn't know what to do and could only look in Gu Xiangyi's direction. "It's fine now." Lung Hua gently stroked the child's head. When he saw the child looking timidly at Gu Xiangyi, he smiled and said, "He's our friend." With that, he carried the child and walked towards the inn with the others. Seeing that those people didn't even look at them when they came out, and actually took those people away so openly, the city lord felt that his dignity was being challenged. He immediately shouted in a deep voice, "Capture them all." Fengjiu, who had already left, did not stop when he heard the words behind him. He only left behind a sentence. "Cripple him." These 3 words floated out, and Du Fan smiled as he opened the fan in his hand. The fan in his hand flew out with spirit force and attacked the city lord. A killing intent that covered the sky rushed over, causing the old man, the middle-aged man, and the city lord to be shocked. They quickly dodged, but they saw the sharp aura of the fan instantly cut through one of their arms. In an instant, blood gushed out and a muffled groan rang out. Chapter 34-38. They did not even need to make a move to deal with these people. They only needed to unleash their pressure to force them to kneel on the ground while screaming in agony. A powerful pressure filled the surroundings. The weaker people could not help but spit out blood. Some of them clutched their necks tightly, unable to breathe. The commoners who had retreated further away were dumbfounded when they saw this. They stared at the people in disbelief and were shocked. It could be said that all the clans in the city were alarmed at this moment. The patriarchs and ancestors of each clan hurried out to take a look. Against the city lord? What kind of person dared to be so arrogant? When the patriarchs and ancestors of the various clans came out to take a look, they could not help but gasp when they saw the city lord's guards kneeling on the ground under the powerful pressure. Disbelief filled their eyes. The powerful pressure spread out. Even though it did not affect the commoners in the surroundings, their hearts could not help but beat violently as they stood among the commoners. They were extremely shocked. Even the ancestors of their clans had to lower their heads in the face of such a powerful pressure. According to their people, the people who stayed behind were only the woman in red's guards. Then just how powerful was the woman in red? No. One of the old men's minds suddenly trembled. His body trembled as if he had thought of something. His eyes were filled with fear. "Grandfather? Grandfather, why are you here as well?" A man in luxurious clothes squeezed his way forward. It was the man who had been pestering Fengju the other day. He had seen the woman in red in the crowd earlier, but before he could speak, she had turned and left. The old man ignored him and looked at the middle-aged man beside him. "Go and ask what the woman in red looks like. Also, what kind of people are with her?" The middle-aged man saw the change in his expression and nodded gravely. Just as he was about to call someone over to ask, the man in luxurious clothes beside him hurriedly said, "Father, there's no need to ask. I know." It was not just the old man and the middle-aged man. Even the people from the clans nearby walked over when they heard this and surrounded them. "Brother Chun, from your expression, could it be that you know who they are?" An old man asked. He was also the ancestor of an aristocratic family. When he heard that something big had happened in the city, that a group of people had come out of nowhere and actually clashed with the city lord, he hurried over. No matter what, the city lord was the city lord of their city. If something really happened, they couldn't just stand by and watch. However, when they came here to take a look, they felt that these people weren't ordinary people at all, so they didn't dare to act rashly. "You know? Tell me." As the old man spoke, he didn't even look at the others. He only let his grandson speak. Only he knew that his hands behind his back were already sweating due to nervousness. "That woman in red is extremely beautiful and has an extraordinary bearing. Beside her are two girls in white and one in black. They are all very beautiful. I have been here for so long, but I have never seen girls as beautiful as them. Even so, the three of them are not even half as beautiful as that woman in red." Chapter 34-39. After being yelled at by his grandfather, the man in luxurious clothes didn't dare to say anything else. He only said, "I was watching from here just now, so I heard one of the women call the woman in black Lung Shuang. Also, the woman in red seems to know those captured slaves. She said something about Gu Xiangyi. Moreover, I know that they're staying in the inn ahead, and they've even booked the inn." He paused for a moment, and then said, "I went to take a look. Regardless of whether they're men or women, they're all extremely outstanding. They don't look like ordinary people." As he spoke, he added, "They should be from aristocratic families." The old man was slightly shocked when he heard this. Right at this moment, a cry of surprise came from ahead. They looked over when they heard the sound, and they saw a man with a folding fan in his hand had actually crippled the city lord's cultivation so easily. On the ground, the middle-aged man and the old man coughed up blood as they fell to the ground. They looked at the smiling man with a folding fan in his hand with astonishment. The city lord actually asked the city lords of the nearby cities for help just now? Look, the signal in the sky has been sent out." A member of an aristocratic family exclaimed in surprise. He felt that the situation was really troublesome. The city gates were destroyed, the city lord was crippled, and the guards in the city were lying on the ground half dead. Now that the signal for help had been sent out, if the city lords of the nearby cities rushed over, it would probably be a huge battle. At this moment, probably no one would have thought that if they really fought, they would only be annihilated. Of course, there was one exception, and that was the Chun family's ancestor. At this moment, his face was slightly pale, but he still didn't dare to be sure, until he heard a voice from ahead. "Who exactly are you to injure me to this extent?" The old man on the ground wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth as he stared fixedly at the man holding a folding fan in front of him, who looked like an elegant young master. Du Fan fanned himself lightly and glanced at the people on the ground. He revealed a smile. "Listen well, this young master is Du Fan." Du Fan, Du Fan. These two words were like a clap of thunder in the Chun clan's ancestors' ears, fiercely striking down from the sky and charring him black. As a result, his body trembled violently, and he staggered back a few steps. Grandfather, what's wrong?" The man in luxurious clothes hurriedly supported him. Seeing this, the middle-aged man asked with a grave expression, "Father, what's wrong? I don't think anyone from our Chen clan has done anything rude to them, right?" The Chen clan's patriarch grabbed his son's wrist and asked anxiously. When the other family members saw this, they secretly waved their hands and signaled for those who were about to make a move to stop. They quietly watched the Chun family's old ancestor. They were certain that the Chun family's patriarch knew who those people were. When the middle-aged man saw this, he knew the seriousness of the matter. He thought for a moment and said, "I don't think so. Our people didn't give the order, so no one got involved in this matter." Moreover, when they saw how easily those people shocked everyone, they naturally knew how powerful they were. Thus, they didn't dare to rashly make a move, lest they bring trouble to themselves. It's good that they didn't. It's good that they didn't. The old man nodded and clearly heaved a sigh of relief. At this moment, one of the guards saw the seriousness of the matter and hesitated for a moment before saying, "Old master, last night, the young master blocked the way and took liberties with that woman in red." Chapter 3440. Since when did I flirt with her? I only wanted to show her the way and bring her around the city for sightseeing. Seeing this, the man in luxurious clothes hurriedly spoke, helping his grandfather calm down as he glared at the talkative guard. The guard lowered his head, not daring to speak. However, he knew that the young master's actions last night were seen as flirting with a lady in the eyes of others. Fortunately, they had pulled him back and stopped him, preventing the matter from escalating. After waiting for his father to catch his breath, family head Chun hesitated, then asked, "Father, who are they?" From the looks of it, they should have a rather powerful background. But what kind of people were they? How could they frighten his father to this extent? "The ghost doctor, it's the ghost Dr. Fungio." Old Master Chin's voice trembled as he said, "There's been no news of her for many years. Now, she's finally appeared again." Hearing this, the people from the other families couldn't help but feel shocked. The ghost, Dr. Fungio? At this moment, once this name was mentioned, all the information about the ghost Dr. Fungio flooded into their minds. In an instant, everyone knew that the lady in red was indeed Fungio. Aside from the ghost Dr. Fungio, who else could wear a red robe in such a carefree and unrestrained manner? Aside from the ghost Dr. Fungio, who else would have such powerful subordinates by his side? Aside from the ghost Dr. Fungio, who else would dare to act so arrogantly? While everyone was still in shock, on the other side, after crippling the mayor's cultivation and seriously injuring the two people beside him, Du Fan and the rest didn't even look at them as they strode towards the inn. With such a shocking scene, those who were tactful would know that it was best to end things here. However, thinking of the signal that the mayor had sent out, Du Fan smiled and opened the fan in his hand with a swish, gently fanning himself. If there was anyone who didn't know better and wanted to challenge them, they would gladly oblige. In front, Fungio led Gu Xiangyi and the rest into the inn. The sudden arrival of so many people made Mo Chun and the rest on the first floor look at them in surprise. "An old acquaintance," Fungio said to them, then said to Gu Xiangyi, "Go take a bath and treat your wounds first. I'll get someone to prepare some food for you. Let's sit down and talk later." As he spoke, he instructed Lung Hua to take them down to make arrangements. Hearing this, Gu Xiangyi nodded and followed Lung Hua to the back. "Lung Shuang, go buy some clothes for them and come back. Qin Xin, tell the shopkeeper to get more people to prepare some food for them. Also, invite some doctors to treat their wounds." Fungio instructed them to get to work, then sat down at the table. "Yes." The two of them responded, and then went their separate ways. "He looks a little familiar, but I can't remember who he is," Guan Shilin said, looking thoughtfully at the tall man. "It's Gu Xiangyi, the person who delivered the spiritual medicine to our heavenly pill house. I don't know how he ended up like this. His spiritual power has been sealed, and he can't speak. The old and the young are being escorted to be enslaved." Fungio said, then paused. Fortunately, Lung Shuang met him and recognized him. If Lung Shuang hadn't met him and recognized him, he probably wouldn't have walked past them. They probably wouldn't know what happened to them in a short time. Chapter 3441. As they chatted downstairs, Lung Shuang ordered the waiter to deliver the clothes to them after buying them. About half an hour later, Gu Xiangyi and her father walked out and stood in front of Fengjiu and the others. Because it was just right for 4 people to sit at a table, Fengjiu stood up and turned to sit at the table next to them. She gestured sit. Looking at Gu Xiangyi and her father, who looked completely new, she felt that the Gu Xiangyi she knew in the past had returned. The two nodded and sat down at the table next to her. "Give me your hands." She gestured for them to reach out. Hearing this, the two of them stretched out their hands and placed them on the table. Fengjiu stretched out her hand to take their pulse, and not long after, she withdrew her hand. Seeing this, the two of them looked at her. Did they drink the medicine that made them lose their voices? Is it the same for your people? Fengjiu asked as she took out the silver needles from her space. Gu Xiangyi nodded and poured some tea on the table. Then, she dipped her finger in the tea and wrote on the table. She asked, "Can they recover?" Seeing the words on the table, Fengjiu smiled. "A mere medicine for losing one's voice is not a problem for me. Don't worry." She opened the wrapped silver needles and said, "I'll help you use the silver needles and spiritual power to force the medicine out of your body. As for your people, I'll write a prescription for them to decoct the medicine. After drinking it, they should be able to speak by tonight." Hearing this, Gu Xiangyi and her father looked at each other and secretly sighed in relief. Gu Xiangyi used the tea to write the words, "Thank you," on the table and sat upright, waiting for her to perform the acupuncture for them. Fengjiu smiled. She swiped her finger across the bag of silver needles and took one out. She stood up and went to Gu Xiangyi's side. "Don't move during the acupuncture process." Mo Chun, Jun Jushang, and Guan Shilin sat at a table nearby. They did not disturb Fengjiu as he performed the acupuncture. The guests on the second floor stood there and watched. They were very curious about their identities. Fengjiu applied the needles to both of them at the same time. After half an incense stick of time, he pulled out the silver needles and put them away. The spiritual power in his palm carried a trace of vitality and was injected into their bodies. When the medicine was forced out of their bodies, it also opened up the sealed spiritual power in their bodies. Pooh! Pooh! The Gu family's father and son both spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. After spitting out that mouthful of blood, the sound that had been stuck in their throats could finally be heard. Furthermore, the spiritual energy around their bodies began to surge. Cough, cough. The Gu family's patriarch coughed twice. He wiped away the blood at the corner of his mouth and took a deep breath. He felt his entire body recover. He immediately cupped his hands and said to Fengjiu, "Thank you, Ghost Doctor. If we didn't meet you this time, I'm afraid we wouldn't know what to do." Fengjiu smiled slightly. "No need to thank me. Sit down and rest for a while. I still want to hear from you too. How did you end up like this?" As she spoke, she looked towards the second floor. Seeing that they were all staring at them, she said to the Lung Shuang, who was waiting at the side, "Didn't the shopkeeper say that the guests would be checking out today?" Hearing this, the Lung Shuang glanced at the second floor and walked up. "Guests, please." Chapter 3442. After those people left, the shopkeeper asked the waiter to clean up the blood on the ground and then retreated. After Gu Xiangyi calmed down for a while, he said, "Actually, this is our family's internal strife. The people of the second branch colluded with outsiders to attack us and seize the Gu family sovereignty. They also chased out the people of the first branch and had people escort us here to become slaves. I didn't expect to meet you here and be saved by you." After listening to him briefly explain the matter in a few words, Fengjiu only smiled. It seems that in the years we were not here, many people have become arrogant. They even dared to attack the people who worked with us. Because of the family's internal strife, our people did not have time to ask for help from the Heavenly Pill Building. They took over the Gu family and did not stop doing business with you. However, at that time, some people in my family escaped. I also asked them to ask for help from the Heavenly Pill Building. We also left some clues along the way, but we didn't expect to meet you before they arrived. Fengjiu listened to them talk, while asking Lung Shuang to get a pen and paper from the shopkeeper to write down the prescription. He asked Lung Shuang to buy some medicinal herbs and have someone boil the medicine for the people of the Gu family to drink. It's easy to deal with the family's internal strife. Fengjiu smiled and said, I came back this time to prepare to get married. I won't stay on this continent for long. I will go directly to the lower continent. How about this? I will send someone to accompany you back to deal with the matter and solve it. Hearing him say this, the father and son of the Gu family naturally had no objections. They immediately nodded and stood up to thank him. At the same time, at the city gate, a few figures on swords flew over from the sky. When they arrived at the city gate and saw the collapsed corner of the city wall, they were slightly surprised and looked at each other. City lords, you're finally here. Our city lord. The old man saw them and couldn't help but cry out in a choked voice. When they came down and saw the dying city lord being supported by the old man, they couldn't help but turn pale with fright. What's going on? How did it become like this? What kind of person could actually cripple his cultivation? This was simply worse than killing someone with a single slash. The old man took a deep breath and endured the excruciating pain in his internal organs. He said, a group of people came to the city. They released dozens of people who wanted to become slaves on the street and injured the guards. They also heavily injured us and crippled the city lord's cultivation base. Those people are too lawless. City lords, you must not let such a person do as he pleases. Who dares to be so arrogant? You don't even know where they came from. One of the city lords asked with a frown. I don't know who they are. I only know that the man who injured us is called Du Fan. Du Fan. They looked at each other. They had never heard of this name before. Among the crowd, the Chun family's patriarch, who had just reprimanded his grandson, walked forward after hearing their words. City lords, you must not offend that person. Old Master Chun, what do you mean by that? When the heavily injured old man heard his words, he couldn't help but glare at him angrily. Those people had injured them to such an extent. Were they just going to let it go like this? Impossible. Chapter 34-43. The injured old man supported their city lord with a face full of grief. City lords, those people dared to hurt our city lord today. It's hard to guarantee that they won't do the same to all of you one day. Furthermore, our city lord has a special relationship with all of you. Now that his cultivation has been crippled, how can all of you stay out of this and allow those savage people to continue living in this world? Today, they've crippled our city lord's cultivation and destroyed our city's walls. At the same time, they're also slapping all of you city lords in the face. When the hesitant city lords heard this, a vicious aura rose in their hearts. That's right, those people dared to treat a city lord in this way. Weren't they looking down on them as well? Furthermore, today's matter had already turned out this way. If they didn't step in, how could they establish themselves in this world in the future? At that moment, one of them said in a low voice, that's right, those people are so savage. If we don't do anything about it, wouldn't we be letting them continue to wreak havoc everywhere? Where are they now? Have they escaped? Another city lord asked, his face full of displeasure. Hearing this, the injured old man was overjoyed and hurriedly said, no, these people are very savage. They haven't escaped. They're staying in an inn in the city. It's just up ahead. Let's bring you there. Thus, the old man ordered his men to send the city lords back first while he was supported by his guards towards the inn. With every step he took, the murderous intent in the old man's heart grew stronger. With the city lords working together, he didn't believe that they couldn't kill those people. When the Chun family's ancestor saw that they were escorting the city lords forward, he couldn't help but become anxious. You can't. You really can't. However, no one listened to him. The guards also followed those people and left. The surrounding commoners also followed to watch the show. At this moment, when the family lords and ancestors saw this, they asked hesitantly, Elder Chun, why don't you just tell them that it's the ghost Dr. Fengjiu? If that woman in red really is the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, even if they work together, I'm afraid that they'll lose miserably. When the old man heard this, he looked at them and sighed. They won't listen. Besides, in this situation, do you think that they'll believe me even if I tell them? Even if you hear it, I'm afraid that you won't believe it, right? Not to mention you. Even I don't dare to believe it. After all, there hasn't been any news of the ghost Dr. Fengjiu for many years. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. Indeed, they didn't really believe it in their hearts. However, they still somewhat believed it. After all, from the way those people acted, who else would do such a thing other than the ghost Dr. Fengjiu? However, there were people who said that the ghost Dr. Fengjiu had already died, and there were also people who said that she had provoked a strong enemy and was hiding. Now, there are people who said that she had suddenly appeared in this city. Whether it was true or false, it was hard to tell which was the truth. Which one is fake? Teat. Chapter 34:44. We've been gone for too long, and Master's return has been too peaceful. If we don't make any noise, no one will know that our Master is back. Luo Yu crossed his arms over his chest as he spoke like a ruffian, his eyes also landing on the people outside. Inside the inn, other than the table Fengjiu and the others were sitting at, all the other tables were filled with food. The Gu clan's people were all sitting at the table and eating while paying attention to the movements outside. Just now, they found out that the person who saved them was the ghost Dr. Fengjiu, the famous ghost Dr. Fengjiu. Thinking of this, they couldn't help but look towards Fengjiu, who was sitting with a few outstanding men, their eyes filled with admiration. They never thought that there would be a day when they would be able to see the ghost Dr. Fengjiu with their own eyes. It had to be said that she was really dazzling, like the sun in the sky, so dazzling that people didn't dare to look directly at her. Fengjiu didn't pay attention to the movements outside, and only said to Guan Shilin, "Brother, later you, Lung Hua, and Lung Shuang will help the Gu clan's people release their sealed spiritual energy." "Okay," Guan Shilin responded and nodded. Outside, a few city lords gathered together and stood in front of the inn's entrance, shouting at Du Fan and Luo Yu, who were leaning against the door, "Call your master out." Luo Yu sneered and looked at them with contempt. "You want to see my master with just you? You think too highly of yourselves." Hearing this, the city lords couldn't help but become angry, impudent. A voice filled with pressure shouted, and the pressure along with the air rushed towards Du Fan and Luo Yu. Unexpectedly being shouted at like this, Du Fan and Luo Yu both raised their eyebrows. In the next moment, the two straightened their faces, and their originally leaning bodies straightened. The smiles on their faces disappeared, and a cold shout came from their mouths at the same time. "How dare you!" As soon as this impudent voice came out, it was as if two mountains suddenly pressed down on their heads. A powerful pressure accompanied by a terrifying aura fiercely pounced on them. For a moment, their knees fell heavily to the ground with a plop. This, yes. The pain from their knees made many of them cry out in pain and draw in a breath of cold air. What made the city lords feel even more ashamed and shocked was that they, as city lords, had actually knelt down without any warning because of their impudence. The pressure that pressed down on them was so powerful and terrifying that they broke out in cold sweat and forgot how to react for a moment. The surrounding people looked as if they had seen a ghost. They were dumbfounded as they watched the city lords and the guards kneel down with a plop under the cold shouts of the two men. Moreover, they were unable to stand up. A mere city lord actually dares to put on airs in front of us. You really don't know what's good for you. Luo Yu shouted coldly as he narrowed his eyes and stared at the people kneeling on the ground. Du Fan stared at the city lords and opened the folding fan in his hand. He gently fanned himself as he said, "Just kneel. If you dare to stand up before I ask you to, His words were relaxed and carried a hint of a smile. However, the threat in his words was so obvious that the people who were about to stand up froze and didn't dare to move. Chapter 34:45. Inside the inn, Fengjiu and Mo Chan were chatting idly, while the Gu clan members were eating on the first floor. They glanced at the people kneeling outside the inn's door, thinking that these people were too insensible. As city lords, they actually dared to rush over to help without investigating clearly. If it were anyone else, it would have been fine, but they just had to meet the ghost Dr. Fengjiu and the others. Who knew how long they would have to kneel outside like this? When the people from the great clans who had followed them saw the city lords and the others kneeling on the ground with ugly expressions, they couldn't help but be startled, thinking to themselves, could it be that Fungio had come out? They squeezed their way forward, but only saw the two men standing on the left and right of the inn's door. Other than the two of them, no one else had come out. Grandfather, look, the one in red sitting inside is that lady. The man in luxurious clothes poked his head out and pointed at the red figure inside the inn. Hearing this, everyone couldn't help but shift their steps slightly, poking their heads out to look inside. After faintly seeing the figure, they fell into deep thought for a while, before one of them lowered his voice and asked, "Are we just going to watch like this? Think of a way to let those city lords know. Otherwise, things will get out of hand." The Chun clan ancestor sighed and said. Therefore, they gathered together to discuss. Not long after, they nodded. After tidying up his robe, the Chun family's ancestor glanced at his grandson and said, "Follow me." Then he walked forward. The city lords were all kneeling, and so were the guards. Thus, when the Chun clan ancestor brought his grandson forward, he immediately attracted everyone's attention. Seeing the Chun clan ancestor walk forward, the city lords were startled. But just as they were about to speak, they saw him lead the young man in luxurious clothes behind him and respectfully cup his hands together in a bow towards the inn. "This old man has brought my inferior grandson to ask for forgiveness from the ghost doctor. Last night, my grandson offended the ghost doctor. Please forgive him." When the Chun clan ancestor's voice rang out, some people were at a loss, while others' expressions changed, and they were extremely shocked. The ghost doctor? At this moment, the faces of the city lords kneeling on the ground paled, and they couldn't help but raise their heads to look inside the inn. The ghost, Dr. Fungio, was here? How? How is this possible? Upon hearing the old ancestor's words, Du Fan and Luo Yu exchanged glances and looked at the old ancestor meaningfully. After a while, Du Fan walked in. Fungio, who was chatting with them, heard the conversation outside and couldn't help but smile. When he saw Du Fan come in, he said to him, "Let them go back." Hearing this, Du Fan replied, "Yes." Then he walked out. When he arrived outside, his gaze swept across the pale-faced people on the ground. Only then did he say to old Master Chun, "My master wants all of you to go back." Hearing this, old Master Chun couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief and hurriedly said, "Thank you, Ghost Doctor." Only then did he leave with his grandson. At the same time, he glanced at the city lords kneeling on the ground. Du Fan and Luo Yu walked into the inn. Once they retracted their pressure, the people kneeling on the ground couldn't help but sigh in relief, and their bodies went limp. There was clearly no pressure, but at this moment, they couldn't stand even if they wanted to. Chapter 3446. On the first floor of the inn, Fungio and the others sat and drank, not paying attention to the people outside. At their level of cultivation, those people were no longer worthy of their attention. As long as they didn't go too far, they wouldn't bother with them. "Since we're not leaving today, I'll go back to my room to sleep." She stood up and said to Bai Ching-chung, "How are you guys keep an eye on them?" "Yes." Bai Ching-chung replied, and watched her get up and go upstairs. Seeing her leave, Emo Chan said to Jun Jueshang, "How about we go upstairs and play a few games of chess? I'll be happy to accompany you." Jun Jueshang said, and stood up as well, walking upstairs with him. Seeing this, Guan Shilin smiled at Gu Xiangyi, who was next to him, and said, "Let's talk." Xiao Jiu said that he'll let some people go back with you to help. "Have you decided how to deal with those people when you go back?" Gu Xiangyi and her father looked at each other, and the two of them went to the table where Guan Shilin was sitting and sat down to chat with him. Hao also went back to his room, and the others were busy with their own things. Although there were many people in the inn, it was very quiet. Outside, the few city lords who had been helped away found the old man of the Chun family. After learning the identity of the people in the inn from him, they were so scared that their faces turned green. They didn't dare to stay for long, and didn't even dare to think about standing up for the city lord whose cultivation had been destroyed. Instead, they hurriedly left for their own cities. They thought that it would be a chaotic battle, but after knowing the identity of Fungio and the others, no one dared to fight with them. and the matter came to an end. The next morning, the people of the Gu family solemnly thanked Fengjiu. Fengjiu also stayed behind and asked Du Fan and Luo Yu to go back to the Gu family to help them deal with the internal strife. After you're done, go directly to the Heavenly Pill building in 100 River City. Fengjiu looked at the two of them and said, "We'll wait for you at the Heavenly Pill building. Hurry up, don't delay for too long." "Yes, master." The two of them responded and watched as the group of people left. Only then did they return with the people from the Gu clan. After they left, the news of Fengjiu's appearance in the city was like a feather blown away by the wind, spreading everywhere. It also let many people know that Fengjiu had returned. Many people who received the news rushed to the Heavenly Dan building in the 100 River City. They knew that once Fengjiu returned, he would definitely return to the Heavenly Dan building. Therefore, they waited at the Heavenly Dan building. The two realms were connected. Many cultivators from the upper realm also tried to go down to the lower realm to take a look. After all, their strength was not outstanding in the upper realm, but if they went down to the lower realm, they would be heaven-defying existences. However, even if they had the intention, it was very difficult for them to pass the test of CK and Mu Exent, who were guarding the immortal road. Therefore, gradually, the cultivators stopped thinking about it. At the same time, Wanyin Xianhua, who was peacefully nursing her pregnancy in the family's backyard, was lying on a soft couch with squinted eyes and basking in the sun. She looked at the warm sunlight shining down from the sky and narrowed her eyes comfortably. She stretched like a lazy cat. "Xianhua, when are we leaving? We've been here for quite some time. You don't want to stay here forever, do you?" Wanyan Shursen walked out with a bored expression. Chapter 34-47. Wanyan Xianhua looked at him and said, "I heard a Jew say that they are already here. They are going to the Heavenly Dan building in 100 River City. However, Jun Jueshang is also with her. It seems that he is waiting for me to appear." 13th uncle, what do you think we should do now? What? Jun Jueshang is also here? Does he have nothing to do in the Xiaoyao sect? He even followed you to the lower world? From the looks of it, he really hates you to the core. He must want to drag you back personally. Wanyan Shur-san said and shook his head. TSK, TSK. I wonder what will happen to you after he catches you. Wanyan Qianhua coughed lightly and sat up straight. He said seriously, "So I think that I can't meet a Geo at the moment. I don't want to be caught by him as soon as I show my face." As she spoke, her eyes flickered and she said, "However, I do have a good idea." "What good idea?" Wanyan Shur-san didn't believe her. "Either we stay here and don't go out, or we go to the Peach Blossom Cove that a Geo mentioned and avoid them. This way we won't meet him." Seeing this, Wanyan Shur-san said, "Then let's go to the Peach Blossom Cove. In any case, I can walk around there. Here, there are dark clouds everywhere. It is very troublesome to go out." Therefore, once the two decided, they found time to talk to the people in the family. The next morning, they left here. The head of the Wanyan family and the others who sent them off looked at their daughter who was getting farther and farther away. They couldn't help but feel sad. Their daughter was leaving like this. When would they see her again? She didn't mention the child in her belly. They pretended not to know and didn't ask. Now that they saw her carrying a child and going away alone, it was impossible for them to feel relieved. In any case, she has her 13th uncle with her. "Don't worry," Wanyan old man said and patted his son's shoulder. Then he turned around and walked back. Wanyan Qianhua, who had left with Wanyan Shur-san, walked on the road. His mood was as happy as a bird that had been set free, and the smile on his face could not be concealed. "AI, it's still better to be outside. To be honest, I don't really like staying in the family. The yin qi is too strong." As Wanyan Shur-san spoke, he summoned his flying sword and jumped onto it. At the same time, he said to Wanyan Qianhua, "Come on up. I'll just carry you on the sword." Seeing this, Wanyan Qianhua nodded. Only then did he leap onto the tip of his foot and lightly land on his flying sword, flying together with him. Meanwhile, in the higher realm, Xinyuan Mose was searching everywhere for rare treasures. He wanted to personally prepare a betrothal gift for Fengjiu. Thus, those things had to be priceless and extremely precious. These days, all the betrothal gifts that he had prepared were all placed in his space. As long as his subordinates heard of any precious treasures, no matter how difficult it was to obtain them, he would find a way to get them. On this day, he heard that the eastern pearl of the eastern sea was very beautiful and priceless. Thus, he also rushed to the eastern sea. As for Fengjiu, who had already arrived at the Heavenly Pill building, he had been idle in the mansion for the past few days. He was only waiting for his subordinates to finish their work so that he could leave and return to his family. Chapter 3448. Fengjiu already knew when Imochen walked in. She didn't even need to look at him to be familiar with his aura. His aura gradually became very gentle. Compared to Xianyuan Moses, it was less fierce and sharp. It was easier for people to get used to his presence without being wary. Knowing that he sat down but didn't say anything, she couldn't help but feel a little surprised. Because her face was covered by a book, she couldn't see his expression. Therefore, she reached out and took the book off her face. Not going to sleep? Imo-chun saw her take off the book and asked in amusement, "How can I sleep with you staring at me like that?" Fengjiu chuckled and sat up from the soft couch. She asked, "You're already here. Don't you plan to go back and see your master?" Hearing this, Imo-chun said gently, "There's no hurry. After all, I just went back home yesterday. As for seeing my master, I don't think there's a need to rush. Let's wait for a while." Seeing this, Fengjiu nodded. "It's been a few days since I returned to the Heavenly Pill House. I'm just waiting for Leng Hua and the others to settle the matters at hand. When Du Fan and the others come back, I can go back." She chuckled. "When the time comes, how about I invite you to the Peach Blossom Cove? The peach blossoms there are always in full bloom. It's very beautiful." "Okay." Imo-chan smiled in response. "When the time comes, I'll treat you to a drink under the peach blossom tree." Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled in response. The two of them chatted for a while in the courtyard. Then, they saw Jun Jushang and Guan Shilin walk in. Guan Shilin greeted them with a smile before entering the courtyard. "Xiao Jiu, Imo-chun, I knew you would be here," Guan Shilin said with a smile. He strode over and sat down beside them. He called out to Jun Jushang, "Sit here. There's still a seat here." The corner of Imo-chin's mouth twitched as he noticed that his snow-white robe had been smeared black. He glanced at Guan Shilin and asked, "Where did you go just now?" Guan Shilin didn't notice it at first, but when he looked at it, he couldn't help but be startled. He grabbed his robe and looked at it. "It's dirty? I didn't even know." Then, she looked at Imo-chun and said apologetically, "Why don't you go back and change your clothes?" "I'm really sorry." "No need," Imo-chun said. He didn't really care about it. Seeing this, Guan Shilin smiled and said, "Just now, we went to the training field and exchanged a few blows. You see, my body is dirty because of him." He helplessly spread out his hands and looked at Jun Jushang, who was standing there. Jun Jueshang calmly shifted his gaze to Fengjiu and asked, "When will you tell me her whereabouts?" Fengjiu raised his eyebrows and chuckled. "Don't worry. Didn't I say it already? When the time comes, you will naturally meet." Hearing this again, Jun Jushang frowned. He didn't ask any more questions and just sat down beside them. At this time, Leng Hua walked in from outside and called out respectfully, "Master, there are people outside who wish to see you." "Who is it?" Fengjiu asked casually. "It's the city lords of the surrounding towns and people from the various great clans. They are currently blocked outside the mansion." "They all wish to see you, Master," Leng Hua said. Fengjiu smiled. "Send them away. Tell them to look for you if they need anything." She didn't want to bother with other matters and left them all to her subordinates. This way, she could relax. Hearing this, Leng Hua paused for a moment before answering, "Yes." He turned around and walked out. Chapter 3449. Fengjiu nodded. "Okay, I prepared some things for your family. You could take them back with you." As she spoke, she looked at Leng Shuang. "You send Imo-chun back and give him the things." "Yes." Lung Shuang responded and looked at Mo Chun. Then I'll thank you in advance. Mo Chun smiled and left with Lung Shuang. Seeing that Mo Chun had left, Jun Jueshang did not stay and returned to the courtyard. Watching them leave, Guan Shilin asked with a smile, Xiao Jiao, she wouldn't have gone there too, right? If that's the case, won't they meet very soon? Feng Jiao smiled. My sister left first. I told her to go to Peach Blossom Cove. We'll leave in a few days. We won't meet on the road, even if the dates are staggered. With a smile in her eyes, she thought to herself, besides, she's pregnant, so she probably won't be in a hurry. The time they spend here can make the journey easier for her and Wanyan Shan. In the following days, she stayed in the Heavenly Elixir building leisurely for a while. Until one day, Du Fan and the others returned to the Heavenly Elixir building to report after finishing the Gu family's affairs. In the courtyard, Du Fan and Luo Yu told her about the Gu family's affairs. In the end, they said, now that Gu Xiangyi and his son have regained control of the Gu family, they can't come because they have to reorganize the family's affairs. Therefore, they asked us to pass on their behalf. After dealing with the family's affairs, we'll personally come and thank you. Hearing this, Feng Jiao smiled. Got it. You must be tired after coming back. Go back and rest. We'll leave tomorrow. Yes. The two of them responded and bowed before retreating. The next morning, Mo Chun heard that they were leaving. He smiled warmly. All right, you can go back first. I'll go to Master's place. On the day of your wedding, I'll definitely attend the wedding. Okay, take care. Feng Jiao nodded at him. Mo Chun sent them off and watched them leave in their spaceship. Only then did he turn around and head home. Phoenix Dynasty, Feng Manor. If there was a special existence, then it could only be the Phoenix Dynasty. From a change of dynasty to the Phoenix Dynasty, it was destroyed by others and became a place without imperial authority. Logically speaking, such an existence was like a piece of fat meat that everyone would stare at. However, because of the Feng clan's strength, even if there was no imperial authority here, no one dared to have any thoughts about it. Although the imperial system of the Phoenix Dynasty had already disappeared, everyone still referred to this place as the Phoenix Dynasty, and the Feng clan was still the supreme existence here. In the Feng Manor, the members of the Feng family who had received news half a month ago that Feng Jiao's group would be returning were all waiting with joy. The entire manor was busy preparing, anticipating their arrival every day. A few familiar people found out that Feng Jiao's group was coming back, so they often came to visit. After asking around, they found out that they were coming back to get married. Thus, they all secretly prepared congratulatory gifts. A few days later, the spaceship flew past the city and landed directly in front of the Feng Manor's main gate. The entire city could not help but look, until a familiar red figure appeared in everyone's line of sight. Someone shouted, "The Feng clan's eldest young miss has returned." Chapter 3450. When Feng Sanyuan, Feng Xiao, and the others heard that Feng Jiao and the others had arrived, they all came out to greet them. When they saw her return after being away from home for several years, everyone's eyes couldn't help but redden. Grandfather, grandmother, father, mother. Feng Jiao greeted them one by one and bowed to them. Then she smiled and said, "I'm back." Good. It's good that you're back. It's good that you're back." Everyone looked at her excitedly. When they saw the little person standing next to her, they were startled for a moment. This is how Feng Jiao said and pushed the little guy forward. "Quickly, greet great-grandfather and the others." "How?" Greets great-grandfather, great-grandmother, grandfather, grandmother." Howard knelt down and bowed to them, then kowtowed. "So it's how? You were such a small child back then, but you're already so big. If you didn't mention it, I wouldn't have recognized you." Feng Sanyuan laughed loudly and helped him up, saying, "Quickly get up, Howard. Let's go home with great-grandfather. Back then, when your mother brought you back, you were still so young. She still held you in her arms." Howard listened and raised his head slightly to look at great-grandfather who was holding his hand. Seeing that he was even younger than his grandfather, he couldn't help but be curious. Ha! Xiao Jiao, come. Let's go home. You haven't been back for several years." Feng Xiao laughed loudly. Looking at his daughter who had returned home, he reached out and patted her shoulder. Then he looked at the people behind her and said, "Come in together. It's been a long time since the house has been so lively." The group of people walked into the manor in a grandiose manner. Many of the people in the manor were old. When they saw Fengjiu, they all quickly bowed. Everyone's eyes were filled with respect and worship. Some young maidservants and manservants couldn't hide their curiosity and secretly glanced at their family's eldest young miss. It was the first time they saw the legendary Feng family's eldest young miss at such a close distance, so they were extremely excited. Feng Sanyuan walked in front while holding Hao Er's hand. At the same time, he instructed the housekeeper who was waiting on the side. "This month, there will be a double portion in the manor. Let everyone be happy." "Hee. Thank you, elder." When the housekeeper heard this, he chuckled and expressed his thanks. He raised his voice and said to everyone, "Old Master said that this month, everyone in the manor will receive double the monthly allowance. He wants everyone to be happy." In an instant, when everyone in the manor heard this, they couldn't help but become happy. The servants all happily gave their thanks. Who didn't know that the Feng manor was the most? It could be said that every servant in the manor, they were proud to enter. Inside the Feng manor's main hall, everyone gathered. At this time, Fengjiu introduced them to each other. After all, aside from a few familiar faces, Jun Jushang, Qin Xian, and the others had never met before. Outside the Feng manor, Wanyan Shursan held a wine gourd in his hand as he walked and drank. Hearing the people in the streets say that the Feng manor's eldest young miss had returned, his expression couldn't help but change. He also went to the Feng manor's main gate to take a look. Chapter 34:51. Fengjiu. The man thought a bit, then said, "The Feng family's eldest young miss' original name was Feng Qingge, but later on, I heard that she was also called Fengjiu. I don't know what happened." "Oh, so she really did come back." Wanyan Shursan turned his gaze and looked in front of him. He saw that there were quite a few people in the surroundings. Aside from a few guards in front of the Feng manor's gate, he did not see any other familiar people. However, just as he was about to leave, he saw Leng Hua walk out and head towards the flying boat. Seeing this, he squeezed forward and shouted, "Leng Hua! Leng Hua!" At the same time, he waved the wine gourd in his hand to attract his attention. Leng Hua, who was about to enter the flying boat to get something, looked in the direction of the voice and was surprised to see Wanyan Shursan. He then walked towards him. Before he could speak, he saw him set up a soundproof barrier, and a questioning voice could be heard. "Leng Hua, did Jun Jushang also come with you?" Wanyan Shursan asked while paying attention to the situation outside the Feng manor's gate to prevent Jun Jushang from suddenly coming out. Seeing him, Leng Hua slightly smiled and warmly said, "Young Master Jun also came. He has been following us ever since we came back. He said that he was looking for young Miss Wanyan. Right now, he is sitting in the manor." Leng Hua's smiling voice paused slightly, asking, "Is young Miss Wanyan doing well?" Master was originally preparing to go see her when young Master Jun wasn't paying attention after settling down. Right now, she's idle every day. All she does is eat and sleep. The only activity she does is go to the peach blossom forest to admire the flowers. We've been here for a few days. I was bored staying there, so I came into the city to ask around. Who knew that I would run into you?" As Wanyan Shursan spoke, he looked inside the Feng manor and said, "Speaking the truth, your manor security is not just a little bit tight. I tried to go in and take a look, but who knew that I would almost be discovered before I even got in? Then let's find a time, and I'll take you in to see the old master and the patriarch," Leng Hua said. Hearing this, Wanyan Shursan waved his hand. "Forget it. Once I show my face, Jun Jushang will know that my troublesome niece is here. You don't know that she actually conspired with your master to rape Jun Jushang before escaping. If she was caught by him, she wouldn't even know how she died." Hearing this, Leng Hua just smiled and didn't say anything. She also knew a little about this matter. She also knew when her master went to prepare the medicine. In addition, Zheng Jushang had followed them all the way. He looked as if he wanted to find Wang Yin, Qianhua, no matter what. So, he more or less knew some things about them. I've been out for a while. Master still needs to wait for me to bring the things in. I'll tell Master later, Leng Hua said, looking at him with gentle eyes, asking if he had anything else to tell him. All right then. There are many people here. Right now, you're all famous people. Everyone in the city has their eyes on you. I reckon that if it weren't for my soundproof barrier, many pairs of ears would be listening. As Wang Yin Shan spoke, he waved his hand and removed the soundproof barrier. He then said, I'm leaving. He turned around and left first. After seeing him leave, Leng Hua got on the flying ship and brought some things in. Quite a few people who had noticed what had happened began to discuss. Who was that person? Why did he look like a stranger? Chapter 3452. While eating a sour fruit, she listened to Wang Yin Shan talk about the phone manners matters. Wang Yin Qianhua's eyes flashed slightly, and she said with some confusion, He actually followed us here? What is Geo planning to do? Didn't she say that she would lose him halfway? Hell, what is it? Are you scared now? Wang Yin Shan stared at her with a look of schadenfreude, saying, That is the master of Xiaoyao sect. Do you think that little girl, Fengjiu, would be able to easily lose him? Now that he's already here, tell me, isn't it just a matter of time before they meet? As he spoke, he glanced at her slightly bulging belly. It had only been 3 months, and it was already visible. If Zheng Jushang saw it, then things would become troublesome. Wang Yin Qianhua gently rubbed her belly with one hand while lazily lying on the couch, saying, As long as I don't run into him before I give birth, nothing will happen. Once I give birth and he doesn't find out, he won't know that I have a child. As she spoke, she paused and said, In truth, the main problem lies with Geo. Right now, I don't know what she's planning. Originally, she wanted to hide in the Peach Blossom Cove so that Zheng Jushang would not be able to find her. But with the current situation, it was hard to say. Seeing the situation, Wang Yin Shan said, That's simple. I'll find some time to go to the Feng Manor and ask Fengjiu. When we find out, forget it. She will come over in a few days. I'll ask her myself then. As Wang Yin Qianhua spoke, she glanced at Wang Yin Shan and said, 13th uncle, don't go to the Feng Manor so that he won't run into you. All right. Wang Yin Shan nodded and did not say anything else. That night, in the Feng Manor, after the banquet, Fengjiu returned to the main courtyard. After settling everyone else, Leng Hua was about to go to Fengjiu's place to tell her about the encounter with Wang Yin Shan today when he ran into his sister. Sister, you haven't gone to rest yet? Leng Hua looked at her. Seeing that she was holding something in her hands, he asked, Are you delivering it to Master? Master drank a lot tonight but didn't eat much. Coincidentally, I saw that there was some bird's nest stew in the kitchen, so I brought some over for Master. Leng Shuang said, then looked at him and asked, Is there something you need? I have something to discuss with Master. Then let's go together. Leng Shuang said and walked with him to the backyard. When they arrived in the yard, Fengjiu had just finished bathing and was sitting in the yard enjoying the cool air. Seeing them come in, her gaze fell on Leng Hua and asked, Is something the matter? Master, today I ran into young Miss Wang Yin's 13th uncle outside the manor. Leng Hua said and told her what Wang Yin Shan had said outside. After hearing Leng Hua's words, Fengjiu smiled. My sister is probably anxious from waiting. That's fine. Tonight's night is pretty good, and they've all drunk some wine and slept. I'll go see them first. Master, drink some bird's nest first. Leng Shuang said and pushed the bird's nest in front of her. Hearing that it was bird's nest, Fengjiu asked, Is there any more in the kitchen? Leng Shuang was startled, then said, There is. Then go get some. I'll bring it to my sister for supper. Fengjiu gestured, then picked up the spoon and ate the bird's nest in front of her. After the time it takes for half an incense stick to burn, the red-clothed woman quietly left the residence. Zheng Jushang, who had been sitting on the roof, faintly caught a glimpse of that red figure as she walked out. He didn't even think about it, and quietly followed her. Chapter 3453. Fengjiu walked in the night. However, after a while, she felt that someone was following her. So, she changed her route to the Peach Blossom Cove. She led the person behind her around the city until she successfully shook him off. She stood in the dark and looked at the white figure in the night. She couldn't help but smile. She didn't expect Jun Jueshang to follow her. However, how could she let him follow her to see her sister at this time? She watched him walk around the city and head in the opposite direction. Then, she took a deep breath and walked towards the Peach Blossom Cove. Wanyan Xianhua was lying lazily in the Peach Blossom Cove. She looked at the night sky outside the window. Her hand was on her belly. Her face was soft and gentle. She was in a daze and looking at the night sky. It was easy for her to feel sleepy. Just as she was yawning and feeling sleepy, she heard Fengjiu's voice from outside. Sister. Her eyebrows twitched when she heard him call her sister. She got up and walked outside. She saw Fengjiu, who was dressed in red, walking towards her with a smile. Wanyan Xianhua's beautiful eyes were angry when she saw her. You finally came. Sister, did you miss me? Fengjiu walked forward with a smile. His eyes fell on her bulging belly. His eyes lit up. Your belly is so big. Sister, it must be hard to be pregnant. Wanyan Xianhua stroked her belly. Her eyes were soft. Which woman doesn't have a hard time being pregnant? She held Fengjiu's hand and said, It's cold at night. Let's go inside and talk. Then, she led Fengjiu inside. Fengjiu, you're here? Wanyan Shisan appeared out of nowhere. When he saw Fengjiu, he smiled and walked forward. You finally came. I brought supper for you. Fengjiu said. He smiled at him and motioned for him to come in. In the room, the three sat around the table. Fengjiu took out the bird's nest from the space and said to Wanyan Xianhua, Sister, you're pregnant. You should eat more bird's nest. It'll be good for the child and you. We have some at home, but we haven't stewed them on the way here. Besides, you have some phoenix guards guarding here, so you eat whatever you want. Today, Uncle 13 said he was going out to find a cook, but he forgot about the kitchen when he saw you guys coming back, Wanyan Xianhua said with a smile, glancing at Wanyan Shisan, who was scooping out the bird's nest. Wanyan Shisan put a bowl of bird's nest in front of Qianhua and said to Fengjiu, Originally, I wanted to let the phoenix guards guarding here arrange it. But since you're here, why don't you find one for me? Okay, I'll send 2 people over later. Fengjiu said and motioned for them to eat quickly. She held her cheek with one hand and looked at Wanyan Xianhua. After she finished eating the bird's nest, she smiled and said, Sister, Jun Jueshang followed me all the way back. He found out when I came out just now. He followed me all the way, but I got rid of him. Hearing this, Wanyan Xianhua moved the bowl of bird's nest to the side. After wiping the corner of her mouth, she looked at Fengjiu. I was just about to ask you, what are your plans? Why did you let him follow you? What if they bumped into each other here? Now that I'm like this, what if he sees me? Chapter 3454. He lightly coughed and looked at the 2 of them. He was a little speechless as he said, You 2 women are talking about forcing yourself in front of a man like me. Don't you think it's not too good? Hearing this, the 2 of them looked at each other and smiled. Then why don't you go and rest first? We still have a long chat to go. Seeing this, Wanyan Shisan nodded. That's good. You 2 haven't seen each other for a long time. Have a good chat. I'm going to sleep first. Saying this, he stood up and waved his hand as he walked out. That night, Fengjiu and Wanyan Shisan chatted for the entire night. When the sky gradually brightened, Fengjiu left the Peach Blossom Cove and went back to the Foam Manor. When she returned to the manor's courtyard, she saw Jun Jueshang in white sitting in her courtyard, drinking wine. Seeing this, she lightly smiled and asked, Why did you come to my place to drink wine so early in the morning? Jun Jueshang looked at her and asked, You went to see her? Who? Fengjiu pretended to be ignorant and asked, Aside from Wanyan Xianhua, who else could it be? Jun Jueshang said. He looked at her and asked, She's here, right? Where is she? How long do you plan to hide her? Hearing this, Fengjiu lightly smiled and said, That's not right. My sister is not someone I can hide from. She walked up to the table and sat down. She smiled and said, "It's just that she still doesn't want to see you. Even if you go and see her, it's useless." "So, she really is here?" Jun Jushang's eyes slightly moved. She lightly replied. Her clear eyes were filled with a smile. "You can't find her. Even if you find her, you might not be able to see her. Stay here for now. It's not time yet." Jun Jushang held the wine cup in his hand. His voice carried a trace of anger. "She still doesn't want to see me? Who was the one who did something wrong?" Hearing this, Feng Jiu raised his eyebrows and said leisurely, "You're the one who took advantage of my sister. After all, you're really old. She's the only one who likes you. If it was someone else, it might not be the case." Jun Jushang choked. He didn't know what to say. He glanced at her and drank the wine in his cup. "I haven't slept all night. I'm going back to my room to rest. Help yourself." She stood up and yawned as she walked into her room. Jun Jushang watched her leave. He calmly withdrew his gaze and sat in the courtyard for a while. Then, he stood up and walked out of the mansion. Where would Feng Jiu hide them? Another month passed, and the Feng Manor had already helped Feng Jiu choose a wedding date. During this time, aside from staying in the manor, she went to Peach Blossom Cove to see her elder sister. During these days in the manor, Yi Jing and the children often accompanied her, so the days didn't seem boring. However, after a month, she began to miss Xian Yuanmo's. After choosing a good date, she sent him a message to tell him the date. She just didn't know when he would return. While she was in the courtyard thinking, Jun Jushang and Guan Shilin were playing chess in the garden. Guan Shilin held a chess piece and thought for a long time before placing it down. However, Jun Jushang only glanced at it before placing down another piece. Immediately after, when it was Guan Shilin's turn, he frowned. Chapter 3455. As he spoke, he paused and asked, "Do you have any recommendations?" Guan Shilin was thinking about a chess piece when he heard Gu Shijio's words. He asked, "A quiet place? There are many in the city. Have you been to all of them?" He stared at the chess piece and thought, which one is best? "I've been to all the famous places. The scenery is ordinary, very similar to many towns." As he spoke, his voice was slow and indifferent, as if he was chatting casually. No one could detect any hidden meaning in his words. Guan Shilin was thinking about the chess pieces, so he didn't pay attention to Zhang Heng's words. Instead, he followed Zhang Heng's words and said, "There's a place you haven't been to before. The scenery there is amazing, but it's not in this city." As he spoke, he put down a chess piece, then raised his head and smiled. "It's your turn." Jun Jushang glanced at the chessboard, then calmly picked up a chess piece and put it down. He asked, "Oh, there's such a place? Where is it? How come I've never heard of it?" "The Peach Blossom Cove. The scenery there is amazing. Peach blossoms bloom all year round, and the fragrance of the flowers fills the nose. It's Xiaojio's place. In the past, the peach blossoms only bloomed in March. After Xiaojio took over, she had people plant peach blossoms everywhere. Therefore, the peach blossoms there all year round. Everyone who comes here will go to the Peach Blossom Cove. It's especially suitable for couples who are in love." When he said this, Guan Shilin couldn't help but be startled. He raised his head and looked at Jun Jushang, who was sitting opposite him. For a moment, the smile on his face was a little embarrassed. That it's over. He actually accidentally mentioned the Peach Blossom Cove. Wanyan Qianhua lived there. If he went there, then Peach Blossom Cove? Jun Jushang murmured these 3 words. He looked at Guan Shilin and asked, "Where is it?" After seeing Guan Shilin's expression, Jun Jushang stood up indifferently. "It's okay, I'll find it." As he spoke, he turned around and walked out. The people in the residence wouldn't say anything, but outside the residence, as long as he asked someone, he would naturally know where the Peach Blossom Cove was. Seeing Jun Jushang turn and leave, Guan Shilin couldn't help but feel anxious. He was worried that he had caused trouble, so he hurried to Feng Jiu's courtyard. "Xiaojio, Xiaojio." Feng Jiu was lying on the soft couch, basking in the sun. When he heard his brother's voice, he slowly opened his eyes and asked, "Brother, what is it?" "Xiaojiu, I was playing chess with Jun Jushang just now. Who would have thought that he would ask me a few questions while I was thinking about chess? I was careless and told him about the Peach Blossom Cove. He is now outside. I'm afraid he is going to look for the Peach Blossom Cove." After hearing his brother's words, Fengjiu chuckled. "It's okay. My sister's belly is already more than 4 months old. I don't think he would dare to do anything to my sister." As she spoke, she sat up and smiled. "However, I still have to go and take a look. After all, the way these two people interact is a little strange. Moreover, I'm also curious. When he sees my sister's bulging belly, how will he react?" Thus, Fengjiu followed her out and went to the Peach Blossom Cove. Chapter 3456. When Jun Jushang arrived at the Peach Blossom Cove and saw the words on it, his gaze involuntarily fell on the faintly discernible peach blossom forest. When he arrived here, his heart inexplicably tensed up. Was she in there? Why is she hiding here? How could she hide for so long? As he walked forward, he felt that someone was watching him from the shadows. He only glanced at his surroundings before walking in. The Phoenix guards in the shadows watched Jun Jushang walk in. When they recalled that their master had sent them a message not to stop him, they retracted their gazes and no longer stared at the person who walked in. The outside of the peach blossom forest was open, but there were some places inside that were not open. Those were private places, and, compared to the environment outside, it was more quiet and secluded. Jun Jushang walked forward. He walked through the peach blossom forest, and when he was about to walk forward, he could not help but stop. Under a peach blossom tree in front of him, Wanyan Qianhua, who was dressed in red like the sun, was lying on her side on a soft couch. Her body was covered with a blanket, and her hair was not tied up. Instead, it was casually let loose. Her beautiful face looked very serene and gentle at this moment, because she was sleeping soundly. The surroundings were very quiet. When a gentle breeze blew, the peach blossom petals on the tree fell onto her body, her hair, and her face. The scene of peach blossoms fluttering in the wind, and her sleeping soundly under the peach blossom tree, was so beautiful at this moment that he could not take his eyes off her. He stood quietly and watched. He did not know how much time had passed, until she lazily moved her body and turned over slightly. The blanket covering her body slid to the ground. He looked at the woman who was sleeping with her back facing him. He could not believe that she could sleep so soundly in such a place. When he thought of the fact that the secret guard were watching every corner of this place, his face darkened. In other words, this woman's sleeping appearance was also seen by the secret guards who were hiding in the shadows. When he thought of this, the aura on his body could not help but turn cold. When Wanyan Shursan, who was walking over, saw the white figure standing in the middle of the peach blossom forest, he couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat. He opened his eyes wide and stared at the person standing there. He couldn't believe it and exclaimed in his heart, "Jun Jushang? How did he find this place?" His footsteps, which were originally prepared to step forward, could not help but lighten. He retreated step by step, suddenly retreating backwards. Jun Jushang, the patriarch of the Xiaoyao sect, whom Qianhua Chang had raped, had come here. What should they do? How would he deal with Qianhua? If he found out that Qianhua was pregnant with his child, wouldn't that be? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but stop. She looked forward and saw that the blanket on Qianhua's body had fallen to the ground. Fortunately, she was sleeping with her back facing Jun Jushang. Therefore, Jun Jushang couldn't see her bulging belly. However, if he walked forward or if she suddenly turned over and woke up, wouldn't he see it? Chapter 3457. Wanyan Shursan was stunned. His eyes were wide open, and he opened his mouth to warn Wanyan Qianhua, who was comfortably lying down and caressing her belly. However, Fengjiu, who had appeared behind him, reached out and sealed his acupoint, making him unable to speak. Fengjiu came to Wanyan Shursan's side and made a gesture to him, to keep quiet. Only then did he release his acupoint and look at Jun Shang in front of him with anticipation. Jun Shang, who was originally prepared to walk forward, was stunned once again. He stared at Wanyan Qianhua's slightly bulging belly in disbelief. His face no longer had its usual calm and indifferent expression. There was only shock and disbelief. His entire person seemed to be stupefied, and his mind was blank. In his eyes, there was only Wanyan Qianhua, who was caressing her slightly bulging belly. He was not a young boy. Even if he had never been married, he knew what it meant when a woman's belly grew bigger. But how was this possible? He had only spent one night with her. How could she have gotten pregnant in just one night? At this moment, his breathing became chaotic. Because of this, Wanyan Qianhua, who was originally lying down lazily, immediately sensed the presence of an unfamiliar aura. "Who is it?" she coldly shouted. Her fingers pinched a falling peach blossom petal and threw it towards the source of the aura. At the same time, she jumped up and looked over. However, when she saw who it was, her eyes couldn't help but flash with a trace of panic. "Jun Shang? Why is it you?" Wanyan Qianhua didn't expect him to suddenly come here. Jiu clearly said that he couldn't see her, so why did he suddenly come here? And he even knew that she was here? Jun Shang was stunned when he saw her big belly, so he couldn't even dodge the peach blossom petal that she shot at him. That seemingly harmless peach blossom petal, after being injected with spiritual energy, became sharp. Just like that, it quickly cut his sleeve and cut his arm. Scarlet red blood seeped out and dyed his white robe red. However, he didn't seem to feel pain. When he saw Wanyan Qianhua jump up like that, he was so scared that his face turned pale and his heart suddenly jumped. In the blink of an eye, he was by her side. His pale face was clearly ashen as he looked at her. "You're actually pregnant." Seeing him arrive in front of her in an instant, Wanyan Qianhua's heart panicked. She forced herself to calm. "So what if I'm pregnant? It's not yours." "What did you say?" Jun Shang's originally ashen face immediately darkened after hearing her words. His entire body was filled with a terrifying aura. His eyes were firmly fixed on Wanyan Qianhua. He only felt that his perfect self-control was thrown to the back of his head by her light words at this moment. Wanyan Qianhua, who originally wanted to say it again, was terrified when she met his murderous gaze. She took a deep breath and calmed her panicked heart. She moved her gaze away and calmed herself down. At the same time, she calmly stepped back. Who knew that she would accidentally touch the foot of a soft couch? Her body lost balance and fell backwards. She was shocked and cried out in alarm. She instinctively protected her belly. She thought that she would fall down, but who knew that in the next moment, Jun Shang would hug her tightly. Chapter 3458. Jun Shang was also frightened when he saw her startled appearance. His heart was in a mess. Even the hand that was holding her trembled slightly. It was said that it was easy for a woman to have a miscarriage in the first few months of pregnancy, and she had to be careful. God knew that when he saw her almost fall down with such a big belly, he was so scared that his face turned pale. He was prepared to scold her, but when he saw her pale face, he couldn't say a word. Fengjiu and Wanyan Shisan watched them not far away with interest. Looking at the two of them getting along, Wanyan Shisan lowered his voice and asked, "Is this okay? We really don't need to go up? Nothing will happen, right?" Fengjiu rolled his eyes and said, "Why should we go up? Jun Shang is here. Are you worried that something will happen to my sister? Don't worry, it's okay. Let them get along. You don't want your grandnephew to be born without a father, do you?" Hearing her words, Wanyan Shisan looked at the two people in front of him with complicated eyes. He was still a little worried. After all, Qianhua had raped Jun Shang. If he didn't have any feelings for her, even if she was pregnant with his child, he wouldn't be soft-hearted. However, looking at the situation now, it seemed that there was a chance. "Let me go." Wanyan Qianhua came to her senses and said in a cold voice. She struggled to get out of his arms. "Don't move." Jun Shang shouted in a low voice. He was afraid that it was too fierce and would scare her. so his voice sounded more helpless. He looked at her struggling, thought for a while, and finally let go of her hand. However, when Wanyan Qianhua was about to escape, he reached out and grabbed her hand. "Sit down, let's talk." He grabbed her wrist and let her sit down on the soft couch. At this moment, his face was serious and solemn. Wanyan Qianhua hesitated. Seeing that she couldn't escape, she sat down, but her hands were still subconsciously protecting her abdomen. She stared at him vigilantly and said, "What do you want to talk about? Let me tell you, you were the one who took advantage of me when I forced myself on you that night. Don't even think about bringing that up to me again." The corners of Junju Shang's mouth twitched when he heard those words. He looked at Wanyan Qianhua, who was forcing himself to remain calm, and asked, "Did I take advantage of you? Weren't you the one who took advantage of this monarch? Let's not talk about how you forced yourself on this monarch, but you actually got pregnant with this monarch's child and then ran away without a trace. If I hadn't come looking for you, were you planning to hide this child from me?" The more he spoke, the more dangerous his tone became. Even his eyes narrowed. He knew very well that if he hadn't tricked Guan Shilin today, she would have hidden the child after giving birth. He wouldn't even know that she was pregnant or even gave birth to a child. Thinking of this, his face couldn't help but darken. "Look carefully, this child is in my belly. This is my child. What does it have to do with you?" Wanyan Qianhua snorted coldly. Although she felt guilty, she didn't want to lose her momentum. Hearing that, Junju Shang's eyes gradually deepened. He looked at her and asked in a low voice, "Then this monarch wants to ask, how did this child come to be in your belly?" Wanyan Qianhua was stunned when she heard those words. How did it come to be in her belly? Of course, it was because of that night. Chapter 3459. Hearing her scolding and looking at her angry expression, Junju Shang said calmly, "You know whether I'm a beast or not." Fengjiu and Wanyan Shisan were stunned. Their eyes were full of surprise. They didn't expect this. This unlocked Junju Shang was a man who was cold on the outside but passionate on the inside. How did the child end up in Wanyan Qianhua's stomach? Was there need to ask? Which adult man or woman didn't know what was going on? He actually had the face to ask this seriously? It was unbelievable. Wanyan Qianhua took a deep breath and looked at the face in front of her. Finally, she lay down on the soft couch and closed her eyes. "You can go. I don't welcome you here. Don't appear in front of me. We're talking about something," Junju Shang said, and looked at her with her eyes closed. His eyes couldn't help but fall on her stomach. His eyes flashed. For the first time, a strange feeling rose in his heart. There was a child in her stomach. Moreover, the child was his blood. This feeling was really strange. It made him look forward to it. He was happy. He was also at a loss. "Don't stare at my stomach." Wanyan Qianhua was angry. She angrily opened her eyes and glared at him. Even if she closed her eyes, she knew that his eyes had been fixed on her stomach. That feeling made her very uncomfortable. Being shouted at, Junju Shang looked away awkwardly. He coughed and looked at the peach tree in front of him. He was silent for a while. As if he had thought it over carefully, he looked away from the peach tree and looked at Wanyan Qianhua. "Let's get married." Wanyan Qianhua was stunned when she heard this. She asked, "What did you say?" "Let's get married." He looked at her. When he said this for the second time, he didn't find it difficult to say it the first time. Moreover, after he said it, he felt that it was a good idea. He thought that he would be happy to marry her. After all, she was the only woman who had moved his heart in so many years. Even if he didn't understand his feelings for her, he was very clear about what he wanted at this moment: getting married and giving her and their child a complete family. This was what he wanted. However, he didn't understand a woman's thoughts at all. Because of this, Wanyan Qianhua regained his senses when he heard his words. Then, he flew into a rage. He picked up the fruit on the small table beside him and threw it at him. "Get out! Get out of Peach Blossom Cove! Get out!" Junju Shang didn't understand why he was so angry. Feng Jiu and Wanyan Shisan, who were hiding not far from them, were also frightened. Feng Jiu came out. He didn't hide anymore. He rushed to her and comforted her. "Sister, you are pregnant. You can't be so angry. You have to take care of the child." Wanyan Qianhua took a deep breath. She tried to calm down. However, she heard Jun Jushang's voice again. "You're pregnant. Don't get angry so easily. It will affect the baby." When Jun Jushang heard Feng Jiu's words, he was also shocked. He hurriedly tried to persuade her. However, who knew that it would be better if he didn't say anything? "Get out! Get out!" Chapter 3460. Seeing that the situation was not good, Wanyan Shisan hurriedly pulled Jun Jushang away. He didn't dare to leave him there and make Wanyan Qianhua angry, although he didn't understand why Jun Jushang suddenly became angry. After Wanyan Shisan pulled Jun Jushang away, Feng Jiu let out a sigh of relief and sat down. "Sister, why are you angry with him? He is a fool. I guess he doesn't even know why you are angry." After seeing them leave and hearing Feng Jiu's words, Wanyan Qianhua gradually calmed down. Because she was pregnant, her temper became easily irritable. Therefore, after hearing Jun Jushang's words, she couldn't suppress her anger. In particular, she also knew that she couldn't get angry so easily when she was pregnant. However, she couldn't help it. "Why did he come here?" Wanyan Qianhua looked at Feng Jiu and asked. After thinking carefully, she shouldn't have told Jun Jushang that she was here at this time. Hearing this, Feng Jiu sighed helplessly. "Since he knew that I came to see you, he secretly searched everywhere in the city. However, he didn't find any news about you. So, he thought of my brother. I was in the courtyard. I heard my brother hurriedly ran to me and told me that Jun Jushang took the opportunity to trick him when he was playing chess with him. He accidentally told him that the Peach Blossom Dock was my place and the scenery was first class. Therefore, he found this place. After I heard about it, I hurriedly rushed over." Listening to her words, Wanyan Qianhua's face became darker. "You are actually playing tricks. You are really promising. He is not an ordinary person. You can't hide the fact that you are here from him for long. You will meet sooner or later. So, I thought that since he knows, I will let you meet. Who knew that he would say that he wants to marry you?" Speaking of this, Feng Jiu couldn't help but shake his head and smile bitterly. For a woman, especially a woman as proud as his sister, it was absolutely impossible for her to marry him because she was pregnant with his child. Jun Jushang said that he wanted to marry her at this time. Anyone would think that he wanted to marry her because she was pregnant with his child. An ordinary woman would have been overjoyed to hear that the patriarch of the Xiao Yao school wanted to marry her. However, the patriarch of the Xiao Yao school was her elder sister, Wanyan Qianhua. Jun Jushang's words were a humiliation to her. It would have been strange if she didn't fly into a rage. "He wants to take my child away," said with an ugly face Shangzi's eyes. She couldn't help but reach her hands to her belly. She touched her belly, and her eyes became firm. "This child is my child, my. He wants to take him away from me." Hearing this, Feng Jiu was startled. Then he smiled and said, "Sister, you misunderstood. He doesn't want to take your child away from you." For a person like Jun Jushang, it was absolutely impossible for him to marry a woman for a child. He said that to her sister because the woman who was pregnant with his child was her, Wanyan Qianhua. However, Wanyan Qianhua didn't listen to Feng Jiu at this time. She felt a little insecure. She felt that if Jun Jushang wanted to take her child away from her, she might not be able to beat him. Therefore, she thought for a while and looked at Feng Jiu. She asked worriedly, "Jiu, do you think I should take this opportunity to run away and hide? I am really worried that he will take my child away." Chapter 3461. Feng Jiu and Wanyan Qianhua were talking. On the other side, Jun Jushang, who had been pulled outside by Wanyan Shisan, was a little startled. He glanced at Wanyan Shisan beside him and asked, "Did I say something wrong just now?" Wanyan Shisan couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable when he thought that his niece had raped him, and now he was facing Jun Jushang. After hearing his words, he quickly said, "I don't know, but looking at Qianhua, you must have said something that angered him." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw him standing under the peach tree in a daze. Seeing that he didn't speak for a long time, Wanyan Shur-san wanted to leave first. After all, standing next to him made him feel inexplicably guilty. However, just as he took a step away, he heard Jun Jushang's voice. "Did you bring her back here?" Jun Jushang suddenly came back to his senses and looked at Wanyan Shur-san. Seeing that he couldn't leave, Wanyan Shur-san smiled. Yes. At that time, because she said that she wanted to come back here, she asked me to accompany her. At the same time, I also went back to the Wanyan clan to take a look. But isn't Fengjiu coming back to get married? So we also came here. Then he quickly said, "But I didn't know that she was pregnant with your child." Jun Jushang didn't speak. He just looked back for a long time. Then he said, "You go and see her. Don't let her have any miscarriage. Ask Fengjiu to give her some medicine to prevent miscarriage." "Okay, then do as you wish." As Wanyan Shur-san spoke, he slipped away and went back. Although he was used to being unrestrained and unrestrained, he still felt pressure when facing Jun Jushang, the leader of the Xiaoyao sect. Moreover, he had taken his niece away. If he was held responsible, he wouldn't be able to say anything even if he had 10 mouths. Back inside, Wanyan Shur-san looked back and said to Fengjiu that Jun Jushang doesn't seem to want to leave. "What should we do? Are we really going to let him stay?" As he spoke, he couldn't help but look at Wanyan Xinhua. Fengjiu smiled, his eyes flashing with the light of watching a good show. He said, "I just told Big Sis to let him stay. Anyway, my sister doesn't have anyone to order around, so why not just treat him as her subordinate? I think he would be happy to do so. I don't want to see him again today. I'm going back to my room to rest." Wanyan Xinhua said as he got up and walked toward the courtyard. Seeing this, Fengjiu smiled and said something to Wanyan Shur-san. Then he walked towards Jun Jushang, who was standing under the tree, and asked, "What do you plan to do now?" "Marry her and give her child a complete family," Jun Jushang said, and looked at Fengjiu. "Aren't you going to get married soon? You've already picked a date. Why don't we get married together?" Uffed. Hearing this, Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh. "My sister agreed to marry you? This person is really confident. Is he sure that his sister won't marry anyone else but him?" When Jun Jushang heard this, his face sank. "If she doesn't marry me, who else does she want to marry?" "That's hard to say. My sister is such an outstanding person. She won't marry you just because she's pregnant with your child. She's not the kind of woman who cares about what the world thinks of her. Tricks that work on ordinary women are all useless on her." That you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.